Forgot to hit the record button for the first part of the meeting, so now we're being recorded, so the timing is good, I guess. Well, I think what I'm going to do here, because Megan did not get that in her email, is I'm just going to talk to you about this project and the development agreement, and I can walk through the whole agreement section by section too, since I know you didn't get a chance to look at it. But, so the Gateway project is obviously a very large project, a very important project to the city. And to the community, and to the tribe and all the stakeholders. And there's been a lot of efforts over the last 2 years to kind of get this project going, and there's been some setbacks, and I think it's in a good place now, and I think it's moving ahead. But one of the things that Little River Holdings was very interested in doing is obviously leveraging as many sources of dollars for their capital structure for this plan as they can. So there's going to be a lot of private dollars invested, there's going to be tribal dollars from the Little River Holdings, there's going to be potential Brownfield plan, which we'll talk about, and of course grants and loans, whether that be in this case through Eagle or the Economic Development Agency. We're trying to put that all together to assemble it so that the project can make sense financially. Little River Holdings was very interested in showing some progress in this project, not only for them so that they can help get the project out of the ground and going, but also to show progress to the community, because there's been lots of questions about that. And one of the ways to do this, and we've talked about this with the Brownfield board in the past, but also with Fishbeck, is these Eagle grant loan programs. They basically have two programs that they use for this sort of thing. One is for petroleum contaminated products. It's called the Refined Petroleum Fund, and one of them is for more hazardous chemicals. An example, benzenes and volatile organics and things like that, which kind of fits right in with some of the contaminants that are there because of the dry cleaners and some of the past uses. So when we talked to Eagle about this, they were pretty excited about it because it's a big transformational project. It's a collaboration with a sovereign nation and a DDA and the city. So it just checks a lot of boxes for projects that they're looking to fund. So we sent them a project proposal. That's kind of how Eagle looks at this. They go through that and they kind of vet it to see if they think that it's worthy of issuing a full application. And they came back and said, yeah, this project is a perfect fit for what we want. So the city needs to at some point apply for this. So one of the things that Eagle requires for grant and loan programs is a development agreement with the developer. And so as part of this process of trying to get this grant loan, we needed to work out a development agreement with Little River Holdings. And the purpose of the development agreement, to kind of boil it down, is to basically provide security to the city to make sure that the loan portion of this package is going to be paid back. The city, in order to get this loan, has to commit its revenue sharing from the state as the ultimate collateral in case things go south and it doesn't get paid back. So that's the reason that the city of Manistee is the applicant and not the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, because ultimately, even if the Brownfield Authority was the applicant, the city would still have to approve it. And because this is going to just be handled, like we did with the Reith Riley loan, where the city basically administers the whole thing, we thought it would be simpler to just take that one step out. However, the agreement contemplates, which we've talked about at a future date, which is rapidly becoming very soon, starting to have Brownfield Authority discussions about what this Brownfield plan is going to look like for this development. And as part of the development agreement, the city has to pledge its full faith and credit through its revenue sharing payments to pay back the loan portion. Little River Holdings also unconditionally guarantees the loan, so we have that protection for it. But also Little River Holdings is going to give the city a mortgage on all of those properties to make sure that this is paid back. So there's tons of security in here for the city. Little River Holdings is more than happy to do that because they have no intention of not paying back the loan, and we're going to get a Brownfield plan at some point for this. And also, they really want this to go forward and to be able to take those buildings down and to be able to start cleaning up some of the contamination. So the process has been, Eagle is receptive to the agreement, or to the grant loan program. They needed the development agreement. George Saylor, the city attorney, drafted this. Their attorney looked at it and was fine with it, and they went back and forth a couple times. The only reason that the Brownfield Authority is a signatory to this agreement is that the agreement contemplates having a brownfield plan at some point in the future that will assign some portion of that tax increment financing revenue to be able to repay the loan agreement. So that's why the Brownfield Authority is a signatory to this agreement. Doesn't mean that we're going to approve a brownfield plan. I suspect we will once it comes to us, but it's just something that because there's anticipated participation on the Brownfield Authority that they need to sign the agreement as well. So if you'd like, I can walk through the different relevant sections of this just to kind of get you comfortable with it, to see what it is. So we've got the preambles and things in here which basically talk about the site and that it qualifies for this loan, and that everybody is desiring to use tax increment revenues at some point down the future to be able to help fund not only the loan portion but some other eligible costs. Then it talks about.
They've had no testing. It's just all perspective.
Oh no, they've done a tremendous amount of testing. They've done soil borings. They're very familiar with what contaminants are there.
Okay.
There are a few unknowns underneath House of Flavors. For example, there's probably an underground storage tank, but they're not entirely sure. The records aren't clear on that. So once they're able to take that building down, then they're going to be able to do some more investigative work. But they've West Shore Consulting has been their consultant for the Little River Holdings, and they've done a lot of work. And they had to do that. Eagle never would have approved the grant loan because they have to see what's down there as well. So yeah, they've punched a lot of holes in the ground for this. So getting back to the development agreement, Article 1 here just talks kind of about the authority, talks about the fact that we have a brownfield authority, talks about the fact that the BRA is eligible to do brownfield plans and get tax increment revenues, talks about, in the process of establishing a brownfield plan, which we've talked about and will be coming forward, and that, the intent is to reimburse the $700,000 or $800,000 loan with the tax increment revenues at some point down the road. But as I said, there's also other security in here besides that. Right. Then there's conditions put in place on the execution. They have to provide city evidence satisfactory that the developer has acquired the property, which they have. George has reviewed all that. And also that they would unconditionally guarantee loan payments with a mortgage, as well as their guarantee. So I've got the mortgage here. If this gets approved today, then the copies will go to Tom St. Dennis at Little River Holdings, and they have a board meeting later this month, and we'll approve this agreement. So that's where we're at with that. Then Article 3 talks about the project. Article 4 talks about the loan and grant. It says under the loan agreement, the city will be required to pledge its full faith and credit as security for repayment of the loan. So that's, again, since the city is doing that, the city talks about assignment of loan and assumption of loan obligations. And that's just kind of how the loan's going to get repaid. Talks about city obligations. We have to submit documentation, quarterly grant payments, quarterly progress reports, disperse the loan and grant proceeds. And Eagle's looking over this every step of the way before they're going to, write a check to the city to give to the developer. So there's a layer of support there, as well as Fishback is going to be helping to administer this as well. Sure. There's a provision in here for termination, and as long as the developer and the city perform, then we can't terminate that agreement. Eagle could do it under certain circumstances if we don't perform. And then there's some developers' representations and warranties. The fact that they're saying it is a eligible facility under the National Resource and Environmental Protection Act, and that the activities they're going to pursue are eligible as defined by Act 381. There's talks here about events of default and remedies, and then just some miscellaneous items. enforceability, just normal legal terms. So city council approved this at their meeting on July 6th. The hope is that after we get all the Brownfield Board's questions answered today, that, you know, they'll act on this, and then, like I said, we'll take it to Tom St. Dennis. But kind of looking ahead, you know, what are the next steps after this? So assuming this all gets approved and gets down to them, then, you know, there's a process for Eagle, because we have sent the application into them. They have to formally approve that, and once that happens, then the parties will get together with kind of a project plan to figure out, you know, what are the next steps going to be. Eagle has to be on board with that. They're going to have to look at what kind of remediation needs to happen once the buildings get torn down. So again, those are the two biggest pieces of the grant loan: is tear the buildings down, deal with some of the high level contamination, so that it really is, and this is an overused term, but it really is shovel ready for the developer to come in and build stuff. So those are kind of the steps. The timing is, you know, I think there's a hope that these buildings can all be down by the end of the calendar year. So not that the contamination will all be taken care of at that point, but at least the buildings will be down, and so that's a really good progress.
They'll take all the necessary precautions that runoff doesn't go down into the lake.
Yeah, that's going to be closely monitored, because that's just going to be part of the process and the conditions that Eagle's going to put on that. So
I would think so.
I don't know if, you know, if you have any questions about any questions about this, the whole project.
Sounds to me like you guys talked it out pretty much, you know, to the point of the presentation. I wouldn't even know what to ask about.
And the city has gone over all of this, and the city attorney pretty.
The city attorney prepared the documents, and we reviewed them several times. Fishbeck reviewed them. Obviously, Tom St. Dennis from Little River Holdings reviewed them. They went back and forth a few times. Eagle has seen them. They're comfortable with them as well.
Project that will be started yet this spring, fall, summer, fall?
Well,
or a year from
the
now?
demolition will happen this fall and winter. You know, when are we going to see, you know, buildings going up? Don't know quite yet. Little River Holdings hasn't quite finalized stuff. There's like I said, a lot of pieces in here. There still has to be a whole brownfield plan, and that whole process that's going to go through has to be agreements or letter of intents with the prospective developer. The DDA is going to have to get involved, because they're going to have to give up their TIF revenues to the Brownfield Authority to be able to fund the project.
That plan, they're not even able to write because they haven't gotten in the ground fully, right?
Exactly, yeah, they can't even do the whole brownfield or the work plan yet, because they don't know exactly what's gonna go on. So there's a lot of steps, and we're gonna probably need to be meeting more regularly, which was expected once we kind of get to this thing. But I had a really good meeting with kind of the group of stakeholders for the Gateway project last week. It was very positive. We really moved the ball ahead quite a ways. So I think hopefully we can keep up the momentum. And this is an important piece of it. Tom actually came to the city council meeting, which I think council really appreciated last week, and kind of talked to this a little bit. And so, you know, I think things are progressing. So
Good. Everybody seems to be on board at least, right?
yep, so far, I mean, the devil's gonna be in the details once we get into some of the, you know, how this deal gets structured. It's a $30 million deal, so there's a lot of money. How are you gonna put all those pieces together to make it
Well, that's the
work?
thing, you've got quite a few stakeholders.
There is,
looks
yeah.
so. All right, are there any other questions in regards to this? I guess we need a motion to approve this?
Yes,
Is that what you'd like?
That would be excellent.
So we would need a motion to approve this agreement with the development to move it ahead.
I'll make a motion that we, with the development company entering Little River Holdings, that we agree with their proposal.
I'll make a second.
Okay. Any discussion over the motion? If not, everybody agree, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carried.
Hey, thank you for that.
Excuse me?
I said thank you for that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So we get paid.
I was gonna ask for a raise, but we'll see if left.
Come on, knock it off. All right. are we done, or do you have
No,
more?
we
or
got,
should
I've
move
got
to-
a few things under staff report. So-
Okay, then we'll move to staff reports.
So we talked about the Eagle grant loan, which is kind of this development agreement, and I want to talk a little bit about the Brownfield plan. So obviously, the Brownfield plan, when one comes forward, is going to have a few key components in it. So this is kind of just a preview, I guess, of what's eventually going to be coming. Obviously, there'll be the eligible loan repayments under the Eagle loan part. There's going to be some site remediation and environmental contamination pieces that are going to be eligible costs that aren't covered by this. And there'll be some public infrastructure. That's probably going to include maybe doing some work on some water mains, or maybe a little bit of streetscape. Probably a little bit of work on the Riverwalk in that area, possibly some maybe street lighting potentially. But the big piece that might potentially come into this Brownfield plan would be a parking ramp. So that's not cast in stone yet, but I just want to give you guys a heads up that that might be coming. It's been on most of the conceptual plans. How big it is, how it's going to be operated, where it's going to go exactly, what it's going to look like, that's all to be determined. But that is an eligible, directly eligible activity that Brownfield authorities can undertake
Yeah.
through tax increment financing. And it's a really important component of the plan, because in our zoning ordinance, the hotel, you have to have one-to-one parking at a minimum.
Yeah.
So that's probably around 100 right there. Plus, if they have a little conference center or restaurant or whatever it might be, we're going to need more parking. But it's got to fit in, and it's got to work with the whole development in the downtown and all of that. So that's going to be potentially a real important piece of that. There could be others, but those are kind of the big pieces right now. So that's something that, is going to get put together as Little River Holdings tries to piece together all the pieces of the investment into how to make this all work. So that's coming. Fishbeck, again, they've already paid, Little River Holdings has paid us the fees for that. Fishbeck will be doing the plan on behalf of the Brownfield Authority, so they're going to be kind of our, I don't want to say a fiduciary, but they're looking out for our interests because they're our consultant. West Shore Consulting will continue to be doing the environmental stuff. So Fishbeck and Eagle, I'll be looking over their shoulders. So it kind of gives a little bit of separation and I think some transparency, which is really important on this project, just because it's so big and so visible. So that's going to be coming ahead at some point. Probably, I would say, we'll start to see stuff on that maybe within the next 3 or 4 months.
Oh,
So it's coming.
right. Okay, well, thank you for that.
And then
much.
on the Hampton Inn, that there is also going to be a brownfield plan that's going to be coming ahead. It'll be less in scope, but that was discussed early on when the developers came to the city. There's a few things that are eligible for that, but things like demolition, some public infrastructure. In fact, we just had a meeting today with the Public Works Director and the city engineer about possibly doing some resurfacing of the loop road down there, which needs it, and that can be considered public infrastructure, possibly a portion of the water main and a few other things. But it's not nearly the scale and scope of some of the other ones we've done, but that's certainly something that the developer was interested in. So we're working, the city's working on a development agreement with that developer to get on in writing some of the things that they've committed to. And that will probably entail, discussing the brownfield plan. So I'm thinking that we probably need to meet next month at our regularly scheduled date. This is a week later than our normal date because we'll probably have more information at that point to talk about. There might not be any action items, but certainly to keep the board up to speed on that. So that'll be coming ahead. So that's really all I have for staff reports. I don't know if anybody has questions on any of that or either of those projects.
Questions?
Okay.
Everybody happy? I guess so. All right, next meeting date, when did you say?
So
next-
I think we probably will go ahead and just schedule the meeting for,
We have a calendar.
That's what I just looked in here for too.
I thought they used to have a calendar. What is yours?
First Tuesday or the second?
it's normally the first Tuesday, and I'm thinking there's a good chance that I'm gonna be on vacation, but since that's a council meeting and I'm probably still gonna be in this role, we'll just go ahead and schedule it. So I think August 3rd at 2, we'll have a meeting, if that works on everybody's calendars.
Yeah,
That's our regular meeting date, and we'll just plan on it, so,
August 3rd at 2 o'clock.
yeah.
That's the first
First Tuesday of the month, yep. Does that work for you, or is that a conflict, Marlene?
Okay,
Yep.
We meet the first and third
Okay.
Tuesday of the month for our board meeting, you know,
I mean, is there any appetite for the board to kind of change that regularly?
1 o'clock.
Oh, they meet at
So-
1, okay.
You know, the time-wise, I can't do both meetings, you know.
yeah,
So does the second Tuesday of the month work for the board members? Is that, because we can move it to that if that makes more sense for people. It works fine with me.
either way for me, I'm pretty
Yeah.
flexible.
Well, if we want to accommodate Marlene, let's move it to the second Tuesday of the month then, so that would be the 10th.
Then,
And then I'll send a new calendar invite that kind of makes that the recurring meeting, so we just have it on our calendars in case we need those days.
Thank you, everybody, yeah.
That would work better, okay, perfect.
so it's August 10th at 2 o'clock,
Yep, and it'd be the second Tuesday of each month,
second Tuesday of each month
if we need it.
for Marlene. But we don't
Not worthy, but thank you.
do for that girl.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, all right, then we got that established. Members' discussion. Are we all finished there, right?
Yep,
Yep, members' discussion. This time Chair will ask members of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority if they have any items they want to discuss. Any items anyone would like to discuss? Does it have to be per the meeting or personal or life, you know?
probably better stick to the topic at hand.
Okay, topic at hand.
We can have the after-meeting discussion later.
If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, correct?
Yep,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And that motion and seconded, we will adjourn. Alrighty, thank you, and see everyone August 10th at 2 o'clock.
so Megan, we got to figure out